Thank you.
All right.
Well, good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, August 19th. We are here at the Bellotta Meeting Room, and we are the Town Manager Screening Committee. So I'm calling the meeting to order. It is 6:33 or something to that nature. So the first thing on the agenda was I finally did do minutes. Did anybody get a chance to read them? And can anybody make a motion to approve or amend them or whatever?
They're on my computer, which is being used for the Zoom, so I couldn't push the dates, but I'd be happy to move to.
Okay.
I don't remember the dates either, but I also read them.
Okay. Okay. No comments on the minutes? Thankfully, somebody else doesn't. Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. I just want to get that one out of the way. So then if there's any comments from the public, I think we can wait on that and let's get right into that portion of the meeting, which is the meeting, which is to get input from the department heads that wanted to come and talk to us about our search or our assisting, our screening for the next candidate. And I wanted to just say to anybody that's listening and to the two gentlemen, police and fire that are with us, the two chiefs, that I understand that there's a lot of talk around town about people feeling overworked and underappreciated. And so, I mean, you can't go anywhere in town without hearing that these are major concerns. And I also understand that the selectmen have some things in the works. They're going to try to address some of those issues. So I think our focus needs to be on moving forward. What are we looking for in qualities, characteristics, and how are we going to find the people that we'd like to see looking forward, and spend less of our time talking about what the problems are, which can be aired out in a different form. So with that, since the two chiefs are here, we will call either one of you up, or you can come talk in tandem if you wish. Come up here because we're going to record it and it's on Zoom. And come sit down here by me.
We can't avoid TV, can we?
No. Why you guys have uniforms?
So obviously people will recognize it. So whoever.
Tom Scanlon, Chief of Police.
Patrick Sullivan, Fire Chief. And keep your voice nice and high because
Absolutely.
I know what the recording is. So I'm just going to open it up. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to share, whatever your thoughts are.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us to it. I think it's an important part of this process to have department heads have their what we see or what the qualities we see for. I will say this, that it's not easy. It's not an easy task because it's not only about the skill set that you're looking for, it's about the right fit. That right fit is probably the hardest job. And what I see is that right fit, is that person going to fit within our community itself? You know, are they collaborative? Can they work? Because we all know that the job itself, you're going to find somebody with a skill set that's going to have some type of management background, that's going to have a full understanding of how these budgets work and how complicated they can be. So, I mean, I think that part can speak to itself on its face value with resumes and applications. But it's that asking those tough questions about communications, how you see the future of our town, how you see, you just spoke of it, the value of employees, how do you see that value move forward? And how do we move forward with communicating that value? And I think those are some points that those questions need to come up. And how you elicit them is I think we're. I think another important aspect, and David mentioned this one too, is the communication portion of it, top to bottom and bottom to top. And I think that goes along with that collaboration part of it too, because when you start to listen and you start to hear what the employees have to say, and I think that's what brings value. And it's activeness, right? It's not just sitting here and listening to words. It's that activeness.
I made a few notes. I think my biggest thing that I looked at, given the past, is a strong financial background. I think we saw a lot of progress in the last 8 years I think we need to continue that. I think everybody knows the town's got a lot of things looking at them down the road. And I think we need to continue that. And that was something that came on very strongly with the last town manager. I think we need to continue that. She found ways to make that happen, and that she kept, how should I say nicely, kept politics out of it. She was fair across the board, and the town side needed the support for a long time. I think you need somebody with that strong background who's going to be a neutral party as far as who needs what and looks at all the concerns. Again, I kind of echo some of what the Chief Gamble said. The interpersonal relations, that's going to be a strong thing too. The communication and the trust has got to work up and down the chain. There's been, I think that was there, but there were some things that weren't going sideways. I think the communication needs to happen amongst both the department heads, the employees, and to the board as well. And I think, again, they need to be able to balance. And there's the needs of the town, there's also the needs of the employees. The employees are happy, they're going to stick around. And the only other thing I'll throw in there, I know there was a lot of talk about salary. Again, pay good money, you get good people.
Yeah.
And that there's been a lot of, I heard some comments about medians and salaries. You need to do comps with similar type communities. Don't go find a town of 500 people out in Western Mass somewhere as comp. Look at similar type towns. I always keep saying, I think there's still people around that think this is a little town of 6,000 people. It hasn't been in a long time. And that this is a medium-sized community for Massachusetts now. And that you're gonna pull that in. The job market is not what it was. It's an employee's market. Now, if the money's not there or they're unhappy in the situation, they're gonna go somewhere else. We're facing that struggle all the time. And I would apply that just as much to somebody in the town manager position as the lowest person in the rung on the salary and plan. And that the money's got to be worth it. I wouldn't even want to imagine that job. I think one of the things that's been mentioned is the amount of hours that was expected out of that job, and that's a lot of hours. And so that's something I would think. I don't know how much you guys are discussing salary versus the board, but I think that's something you gotta look at and think about that. I think the challenge is there's some of us that we're here because of Lunenburg. That's getting harder and harder to get, and to have a candidate for a town manager's job that's a whole. We haven't had one in a long time. So again, find a reason to draw them in. It's not all salary, but that's got to be a part of it. 100%.
And I think that goes back to the fit, right? Say we haven't had a candidate that's local in this area. I think that's the fit. It's that person understand what do they recognize the strong points and weak points of this town as with our employees, right? We find that fit in that person. And again, it's easier said than done. Right?
So you're deciding your position, so you could apply.
Tom is going to come find me on the golf course.
The one place you're safe from me.
I mean, the one example I'll give is we spend an enormous amount of time meeting people to make sure that not only are they qualified candidates, but they fit within our department, within our employees, and I think that's an important part. I'll stress this again. That will help with the communications. That will help with the collaboration.
You do group interviews?
We do. I do a panel. I'll do a panel and then final interviews. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That was me saying, please. Okay. I'm used to you telling me to stop time.
Different forum.
like to go back to your earlier comment, Chief Gamble, around communicating the value of our employees. And then later on, you doubled back on communications, but then you also said collaboration. And I was gonna almost interrupt you there, because in my mind, it's kind of like, well, you can tell me I'm doing a great job and tell everybody else I'm doing a great job. If I'm beating my head against the wall, that only goes so far, right? Like I gotta feel like my contribution isn't just valued, my contribution is making progress against something, right? And I'm wondering what your experiences are, or what are the qualities we should be looking for, or indicators we should be looking to pick up on that somebody is really good and experienced in building processes that include collaboration, but also decision making and action based on whatever the defined weakness might be.
So I'll approach this like so when you put a plan together, you're taking input from everybody, right? If you have a game plan, you say, okay, well, offense coordinator, defense coordinator positions. So you take that information from what everybody has, and you evaluate what's being brought to you. And it's not about just giving like small talk back, but it's about really giving feedback back and saying, okay, is this going to work? Right? Have that question. Okay, is this process going to work? And if it is, what are our expected outcomes? And if those outcomes don't happen, how do we make this better? And have some type of value, so that collaboration has a value to it. And yeah, you're right, you have to have some processes in place to say, okay, like a budget season, whatever it is, I'm going to take your input. But it's still a collaborative effort to say, okay, I need this, this, and that. But yes, there has to be like a stopgap at that. But it has to be communicated like, yes, I'm going to listen to you. But at the end of the day, it's still my decision to make, because the budget falls on me. But let's talk about if you can't get a cruiser, and is there another avenue, or is there another path, and try to bring that value to that. And I think those are the processes, and I think it's about working through those issues too, right? Just sitting here talking and saying, okay, can we work through these issues, and is your answers or is your processes transparent? Like, are you just giving me lip service, or is there something in place that says, okay, I'm going to take this piece and it's going to work, but this piece may not. So we're going to add this in and maybe work on this and find another solution down the road. And I think that's part of it. And like I said, if you approach it as a coach and you take input from everybody, and you start putting those pieces together, I think that shows value too. It's not enough just to sit there and say, okay, Tom has a good idea, but I don't think that's going to work. It's not going to work. But we haven't even tried to practice. We haven't tried that theory out to see if that's going to work. And I think that's how you get to that collaborative part and that buy-in from the team. But I do agree. I do see that we have to have a stopgap somewhere. Because at the end of the day, that town manager lives and still boss, right? It's got to be okay. We have to have an understanding of it. And I think that goes back to personal communications. Just lip service, active listening. And I think if you put the cards on the table and you show people what the limitations are, I think you can get a better understanding. And I think that would help that part to talk and stuff like that. But I know I get this limited. It's limited when you're sitting at that big chair. A long ways that answer. Is that kind
Yeah,
of?
well, I mean, you mentioned budget, and the challenge with the budget is there's only so much money, right?
Right, exactly.
And sometimes there could be more if we go out and campaign for something like an override, but those are, more the exception than the rule.
Right, right.
There's a limited amount of money, and you're right, the person sitting in that chair always has difficult decisions to make. I guess I was thinking more in terms of more along the lines of making do with what you have, and sometimes deciding that you're not going to do certain things because you don't have those resources, and you have to make difficult decisions, and you have to focus people on the things that you are going to resource and you are going to prioritize. But then, I view this as more of a leadership challenge than a budgetary challenge, right? And I know that they're close in a role like that, but it's a big leadership challenge.
I think it is. I think, but part of that leadership challenge is communication, and part of that leadership challenge is how do you listen, right? We all know we have limited resources. I have limited resources. The chief has
Nobody's
limited
got enough
resources.
resources.
Right. I mean, that's just the fact of life in a municipality. But is there a better way to do it? Like, can we listen and accept what they're saying, or do we shut it off and say, no, this is it, here it is? How about taking that information in and maybe to make it like a pivot and say, okay, is this going to work in practice? Or is this something that we can do? Give that person some buy-in, right? If we just say, okay, this is all you do, this is what your money is, and this is all we can do. If we don't think outside the box and try to get that buy-in, regardless of who you have sitting in that seat, you're going to run into that same problem over and over again. You need to have employees, and especially in this generation, that are appreciated, right? Not only just because we say it, but we got to give them some value. And while working private sectors, right, that value is, okay, if you're a research and developer, you research something, you develop something, and it's taken off, right? There's that value, right? Your company loves you, gives you, $20,000 bonus every month. Like,
Nice, yeah.
Stuff like that. But I think that's what you need to do, is you need to bring people to the table, work on those type of collaborations. And the budget was just an example. Because, that's one of the biggest concerns as a company. We have to value our employees while maintaining the budget.
I have one more question.
Oh, come on. There is no way that's happening.
Do you, and this is for both of you, do you think that the town manager needs to be visible in your building, and how much and in what capacity?
For me, I do think they need to be visible regardless. How much? I think you got to remember, we're working in a different realm too, because there's certain things that are going to go on. We're like, oh, I know, maybe I can stop that, to that factor, something like that going on. But it is, I think it's a value thing. I really do. But again, I think it goes back to what Chief Sullivan said, it's like you're stretching too thin. I mean, it's only so many hours a day do that. But yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to be visible.
Doug will call about this.
Yeah, it's
Great.
But again, I don't think you need to see them every day. We communicate. I never felt there was a communication issue between the former town manager and myself. But I'm also one that if you're looking over my shoulder, I would have retired several years ago. And I prefer to work around someone. Just say.
He doesn't have that.
Just say, yeah. Nobody's afraid of fire. But I think they also, you want somebody that can delegate out. It's some situations that went on that I think there was some expectations that the town manager would know everything about everything, and you can't in a job like that. That's where you've got to rely on your department heads. And that person can't know everything. And the communication's a two-way street too. But like you said, the collaboration, I guess the only time that can be bad is if you're not giving good advice. And that person has to be able to go, okay, yeah, I gotta understand your input, but we're not doing that. I work the same way. I get a lot of feedback from my guys. 90% of the time I go in the same direction they do. Occasionally it's like, no, we're gonna do something else. And this is why. That's sort of my thought there.
I do think, that it was stretched thin, definitely with the hours that you put in and what you have to deal with. I think I'd be very careful of a board micromanaging the town manager too. I think I'd be careful with that. To turn off a lot of people. Those type of positions, usually you see somebody that's pretty independent. They're also pretty good communicators. They're not going to sync up at all. They're going to say what they need to say, give you information. I think you got to be careful with that. And I think it goes along with the chief's elements. None of us like to be micromanaged. If you're a good manager, you're trying to do the right things and you're working towards a goal. You put trust in your department heads, and I think you put trust in your company. We talk about value employees too. You need to value that town manager too. I think that needs to be demonstrated because once it starts from there, I think that kind of it just blossoms, it grows and grows and grows. And I think once that happens, and I think you'll see somebody really grow in that position.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Employees seem to be pretty common thread that goes through the last few months. Aside from salary, aside from collaboration, what other things from your respective departments would promote or bring about their feeling of pride in what they do, that, hey, the people I'm working for, the people I'm working with, care that I'm doing that, and they care that I'm doing it here.
It's hard.
This is where you say, Chief,
Yeah.
No, it's, you know.
I mean, I think, start with, and I think we started going in this direction too, is having recognition for employees. The daily work they do, not just the great things, but the daily grind that they do. Whether it's having an event in town, whether it's having the acknowledgement of performance, recognizing that the daily grind too is what we have also. Not just the extraordinary things, but what they do in it. How do you bring that about? I think you need to solicit that information. What's going to make them feel good is that they are say, hey, we're going to recognize you come and enjoy a day with us, whether it's the board, the town manager, and maybe even bring your family. And again, those things I think build on camaraderie, builds that feeling together as a community. Because we know our departments, especially our guys, will be up there volunteering and different things because they love it. That's a part of their peak, and that's a part of what they like to do. So in turn, if we recognize that and say, okay, we're going to give you a coffee or something, and it's not that you do it every once in a while. It's like that recognition. I don't think it has to be just those great opportunities, but the daily grind. And especially in our field, I think we're a bit different too. We're working 24 hours a day, all these weekends and stuff like that. And I think that translates a little differently than what it does here. But it's that same feeling of bringing people together. And I think that's how we start. And that's how we aside from salaries.
The only thing I'll add to that, I think, is the actions need to match the words. Without going into a ton of details on certain things like this were said, but there were some simple things that went on with not only my department, his department, other departments. It should have been a simple fix that turned into long drawn out conversations with labor attorneys and all that. And I'm sorry that they were simple, easy fix things. Not everything should be a negotiation. And for all the pizza parties and everything else, what do you think people are gonna remember? That this was a simple thing, and it was things that we were able to take care of years ago. That wasn't an issue, it just got done. And all of a sudden, it's production, it's a negotiation, and to my way of thinking, it shouldn't have gone that far. I've always been a believer in a good working management labor relationship, and there were some issues there. And it shouldn't have been. And when you talk about salaries, it was once upon a time, there was a statement made for good being average. You can probably picture how that went over, and to this, that was a few years ago, when people haven't forgot that. I don't understand, again, budgets, not everybody, there's never enough money to go around, but again, we want to get that. But I think, to my thought, that's been one of the things that hurt, is we say appreciation, but then there was a lot of simple things that trip that process up, and people remember actions a lot stronger than words.
I will also add that this itself right here, talking to us, and people hearing us, always hearing us, this goes a long way. And I think this carries some weight to it when people hear us talking about this, and that's what we're looking for in the town manager. I think it goes a long way with employees, knowing that we do appreciate them, and know that they work at Daily Grind, know that that working in a municipality isn't easy. It's not a job in a municipality that's not easy to deal with, not only at our side. It's not. But we deal with a ton of emotions when you deal with people on top of their. It's hard to deal with that. So I think the people in town need to show that appreciation. Not just the boards, it's that entire community.
Not confined to this town, but
So we have a couple department heads that are retiring, and a couple that haven't been here too long. And now a new town manager coming in. What qualities do you think? To me, that's like the number one thing. We have a finance director that can put a budget together, and there's probably transformation from my perspective on how we go about that. But to me, it's the leadership. But you are there day to day, and you have your peers, and you hear from others in town, not just within your departments. How do we translate that into a quality that we might be looking for?
Leadership is hard. It's tough decisions that can be made. But those decisions can be made when you look at qualities. How that person communicates those decisions. Are those decisions made in a vacuum, or are they taken input? They listen to everybody. And again, I'll go back to active listening, right? Do they give you lip service and not their heads? How do you look for those qualities? I think it's a question that design and have. Are you going to elicit the right answers? I shouldn't say right answers. Are you going to elicit the answers that you're looking for? That's going to be a fit. Because your budgets are part of finance. We have a good finance director. I still think that person has to be a blend of good financial knowledge with the ability to work in HR, human resources. That's exactly what we're talking about right now. It's that balance between employees, management, and us, mid-management, and that type of thing. And that's exactly what human resources is. That balance of between management and employees. And I think that's the quality. Do they have that balance? Have they been successful in another field that their employees are generally happy? It's kind of a bold statement, but I mean, I think that's.
They look at everybody's needs, obviously, but his needs are different than my needs, they're different than the library's needs, but that they can look at everybody and reasonably prioritize everything. It's not all about the school, all about the library, all about the fire, all about the police. They've got to have that view. I guess that some of that depends on where they come from. That's always been a feeling I've had when I moved up to a department head level. Your view of what else is going on becomes a lot larger.
And I think that I would say that hits it right on the head too. If you're a town manager, you have to have a high level view, right? Everybody's budget. It's got to be concerned, right? And not just budget, but people. Talking about managing people. And I think you need to find that balance of, again, that employee appreciation and the needs of the town, the needs of our budget. And how do you quantify that? That's what you guys do.
And I guess the other thing I go back to is for years, I think a lot of the HR type stuff was handled at the department level. And it seemed like that was migrating away. And that as department heads, we handled a lot of that stuff. And it seemed like that was becoming more and more of a function here. And again, cop was different than a firefighter, than a DPW worker. There's different needs. We're not all the same. Yeah, you can have all the handbooks and basic employee stuff, but everything's a little bit different. And I still maintain a lot of that stuff can be handled at the department head level. The town manager shouldn't have to get into the weeds.
So the centralization of HR is one thing that I think if it's not the right direction, even if it is the right direction, I feel it went too far.
I don't think they think better.
That was unequivocal.
So today, you all don't get annual like performance reviews. I think I asked you this in our budget hearings.
It's during when we meet with the town managers usually, especially.
It's technically in the contract, but there's nothing formalized.
Nothing formalized.
Nothing that's been done with it. We, again, like you said, usually budget season, we always have the conversation, okay, what's going on, what's the targets? You know, for the last 5 years, I've been trying to build up the paramedic program. He's been working on his accreditation to the department. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum, but as far as a formalized process.
But you do have them with all of your folks, right?
Yeah, we're working on that now. That's part of accreditation. That's impact marketing too. We can't just unilaterally formalize evaluation process. It has to be impact because it does change the condition of work. That's been on my radar for the last, since I became chief. That was one of those things that I've been, excuse, but that's got to be in the form.
We don't.
You
It
don't
was
know.
in the contract for the full timers years ago, when that was in, it was out, it was in, it was out, it was out.
I believe in that tool. I believe it's valuable. So it's not meant to be negative. Evaluations always have a negative connotation.
Right.
I don't think that's true at all, because it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, do we need training in this area, or do we need training in this area? Okay, good job here, we need to make. I think that's the way it's got to be viewed. I think it's got to be viewed like that from the town manager point of view. All right, whether it's a once-a-year evaluation, those conversations is very shortcomings. And again, that's a tough thing too, because your town manager would have to be well versed on. That's going to be a tough one. I think if you set goals, you're talking. Set goals. That's my.
Do you both believe definitively that an annual review process is has to be bargained?
Or as the unions, yes.
Under collective bargaining law.
Collective bargaining.
I don't share this opinion. We're opposites on that, so I'm not a big fan of the process, so.
I don't even care if it's annual, but just that sense of feedback, and then the sense that it is a positive and maybe career enhancing for that
many years, I've seen too many that have gone sideways. I don't,
Well,
I'm not a fan.
personally, I'm with you, because my feeling about performance reviews, especially 4 months performance reviews, are that they're as good as the people who do them are objective. And if the people who do them aren't objective, or they have favorites, then it's pointless. Because you know what they're gonna say before they even write it, and it's up to no bad.
I agree. I think there's drawbacks, don't get me wrong. I know there's drawbacks, but I think the positives outweigh it. And I think if your department has a good understanding of how that works and works with the people that do the evaluation, like for us, we would have our supervisors evaluate their control officers. Whoever they would. I don't see it. There is no way that I can evaluate someone. But you will depend on your supervisors to get to that level, but you also have conversations too. This goes back to collaboration and not making decisions in vacuum. I've seen evaluations that it's personality conflicts, but when you can work with those leaders within your organization to say, hey, look, everybody has personality conflicts. I'm going to recognize it and try to communicate to them and say, look, we need to do this objectively and do it the right way. And I think if those lines of communications keep going, again, it's not easy, but I think it could be accomplished. So in the long run, to answer your question, Tim, I think those are important.
Used to be a book years ago called The 5-Minute Manager. And it was recommended that you just always get performance evaluations.
Right. Well, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
The ongoing dialogue that Chris referred to that during the year, that's it. I mean, the point in time review, I'm not saying it has no value, but I don't anywhere get close to it. It has a very big value. There's a value somewhere in the middle, and you have to judge who wrote it, you have to judge why they wrote it.
So I guess my thinking on this is that a time-based process is either going to identify a lack of communication, or it's going to further enhance communication that's already going on. Either way, it supports communication. And I've experienced the whole myriad. I graduated from college in 1994, like it's been going on for 30 years of my life. And my experience has been, sometimes you get a pretty good idea of where you stand relative to how good a job you're doing, where you are relative to, in my case, because I've never been under a collective bargaining agreement, pay versus performance, promotion, those types of things. You get a pretty good idea, but when you see it in writing, you kind of know where you're at, right? Is the perception that you're performing above, at, or below expectations? Are you viewed as above, at, or below in terms of potential? And what are the things that you can and should be working on to do better? And what are your perceived strengths as well? I've been told I work in marketing. I've been told multiple times over that I'm very good with marketing messaging. My weakness is always people management. I'm not a people manager, right? And so when I'm put in positions where I'm managing people, like I always say right out front to my boss, like, not my strength, right? Like let's always check in on this and make sure that I'm not screwing it up, right? But that I think that a formalized process at least gives you the opportunity to raise your hand around strengths and weaknesses and those kinds of things. So anyway, I
think your department's a little more structured, but some of the other departments less so. Like, how do you rise through municipal careers as an entry level, and maybe
What's your goal? What's your process? How many library books you put away? I'm not a fan.
We're very structured, and for us, again, I think supervision is about the right fit, knowledge, skill based also, because you have have to have a skill base. That means your knowledge of the law, your knowledge of procedures. And honestly, because we're different, we're very different in that atmosphere, that realm, because we're guided by procedures. You know, those sergeants or above need to understand all those procedures, right? And how they affect what we do daily. And that includes law, it includes enforcing laws, whether it's discretion or not. They need to have that full understanding. So I think in that sense, we can say, okay, you're ready for the next level. You need some work here. And I think that's the different structures that we're talking about, as opposed to somebody putting it in your
A place like our operation still run 3/4 part-time people. Have 9 full-timers, but then 30 somewhat part-time people. You have to chase that. Some are very active, some are not that active. There's a whole range which adds to that layer of complexity. I know the town had them years ago, and I think the chief going back several years was usually check, and done with it.
Well, if you have a big department, the first thing that happens is like, I gotta get through all these, and so it becomes more of a chore than it does a reevaluation. So that's probably exactly.
And that's kind of the nail, in some ways, the nail on the head, that it is a tool that exists that can be profoundly useful, but it is limited, and it is both limited and enhanced by the skill of the manager in terms of people management. It's also limited or enhanced by how well they know their employees. Conversely, having a formalized process in place at least forces a more regular kind of reckoning than you may get in a case where you have management who does not have, for any number of reasons, as regular contact with some of the employees or as thorough in understanding of what their day-to-day jobs are. So I just kind of, I think it's worth noting that this has the potential, there's a lot of potential good there, and I personally see the value of it. But I think we've all seen times where that gets leaned on very heavily, and you've got someone evaluating someone else who doesn't actually know the job of the person they're evaluating. Also, I think we talk about it should be positive, but we also have all probably lived through circumstances where you see an annual performance process just used as a way to railroad someone in a specific direction, usually the door.
And
I would say that I do not believe it should be positive. I do not believe it should be negative. I always think it should be objective. And for someone coming in later on, because these go on people's files, in order for it to have meaning, you need to have the other party either be able to present and write a rebuttal, or where they get to do kind of a survey of their department and their leadership, even anonymously, so that for the record later on, people are like, okay, there's a lot of people saying the same things that didn't work. You know? I think it really lends itself, the whole process lends itself to a perfect Yogi Berra saying. When he said, you know, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there is. The idea of them is very positive, okay? But the idea of putting them into practice, the places I've seen them do, have had just wildly different measures of success. And even in the same firm, in the same organization, different people doing the same team have had wildly different success.
It's not gonna ever take off if you don't get buy-in. You know, from people from all the way through. It's never gonna go. There's already been a survey that was done that nobody ever saw, and nobody knows what the results were.
Yes, well, we know that.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
So, I mean, but that's gonna have an effect on getting input from.
Yes, so. By the way, the reverse survey, where you do a climate survey, I'm a huge fan of, and almost no place to do that.
I think that's good. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, wonderful discussion, but it would be also a great thing to ask whoever the applicant is. And what are your thoughts on that? You know, and why, you know? Because you'll learn something about people when you're asking those questions. And that's a good question, because it's gonna tell you something about their management style, their thought about how to interact with the department heads. The other one I liked is just simple question, just to say, how have you shown appreciation of the employees that you work with? You know, it's just a good question for us to be asking.
Question at all.
You know, examples of how you've done that. So this is a phenomenal, great exchange, which is why we do it, you know. Wonderful.
I do think this is extremely important. I think the employees that are seeing this realize that here values what they think and what we think. That helps with employee relations. That's going to help the new town
And if we were to put this right, should we put it back over time?
manager. You're still trying, aren't you?
That's where you go.
He's got a time to count down, trust me.
They'll tell you that. It's still written for you.
It's customary to join the board after you.
That's true.
I hear, but I don't think I can.
He's just skipping the board and leaving town.
I don't want to keep you guys all night.
I will, I'll stay as long as you'd like.
But I think-
Questions?
Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk?
I will take this opportunity to thank you both for coming tonight.
Yes.
And for the service you provide tonight. I said it to you every time you're in front of the board. I mean it from my heart. The job that I hear people say you do, and in those times when I've called for the services, I've seen firsthand, it's first rate. And I'm very thankful.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you don't hear it. I don't, about the service.
And that's,
But it does a really good job.
Yeah.
absolutely, for me, it's the men. They have a backbone. I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now, or I wouldn't be sitting in front of the board to make them up if it wasn't for that. Yeah, this is perfect. This is the way to get that message out to them.
That was it. All right. Thank
Hey,
you.
are you sure no more questions?
I'm done.
Killing me here.
Your battery's gonna die.
It's a hard stop at a time when the battery goes dead.
All right, you're welcome to stay. Do we have any other people?
We don't.
We do not. Okay.
Chris.
Yeah.
How's that truck?
I love it.
Pretty much find me anytime. Have a good night.
All right. So, since there's nobody that's on Zoom, which is too bad. But I did get. I think,
Is there a waiting?
Yeah, you can see it show up.
I'm going to read it into the record, responses that we got from, the first one is from, talking about people that are leaving, Sue Doherty. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend, but I would like to share my thoughts and qualities I believe are essential for our next town manager. Losing Heather Lemieux has undoubtedly been a significant challenge for our town. In these turbulent times, this change adds another layer of complexity to our situation. It's essential that we support our new town manager with respect and allow she or he to perform their duties effectively with the full backing of the select board. To ensure our new town manager is successful, following qualities are crucial. Strong leadership, the ability to inspire and guide the team, making informed decisions, and setting a positive example for others. Ethics, integrity, and fairness, upholding high moral standards and treating all individuals with fairness and honesty, fostering trust within the community and the workforce. effective communication, clear and open communication with both employees and the public, ensuring transparency and understanding in all interactions, and conflict resolution, the ability to address and resolve conflicts constructively. And that was all from Sugari. We also received a response from Superintendent of Schools, Kate Burnham. And she said, thank you for the opportunity to provide input. A list of qualities and strengths are listed below. Qualities: integrity, humility, empathy, compassion, confident, honest, reflective, optimism, respectful, patient, determined, organized, collaborative. Strengths: communication, including listening, creative problem solver, solution-oriented, commitment to transparency, servant leadership, uses personal power rather than positional power, capable of multitasking in a fast-paced environment, and see the big picture and the detail, delegate when appropriate, system/vision to cross-train staff. Finally, we got a long letter today from the Department of Public Works, William Bernard. Dear Mr. Murphy, obviously to all of us, thank you for soliciting my input on the strengths and traits of an ideal candidate for town manager. In my 32-year professional career, the best managers I have worked under had the ability to know what is happening in each department and not just what projects or tasks are being completed at any time, but also be aware of how the staff were performing. The best managers know the major details of projects and tasks, such as deadlines, anticipated completion dates, scope of work, role of the personnel, consultants, contractors, impact of the project on citizens' budgets, potential cost overruns. They know what the role of each staff member is and what they're doing, and if they're doing their job well. The best managers know who the unhappy people are. They work to put staff in a position to succeed by listening to the concerns and finding ways to address them. Best managers regularly solicit input from staff and take the advice of department heads seriously. They are not micromanagers. They make decisions that are the best for the overall organization and explain the decision to those who disagree or who are disappointed by the decision. It is my opinion that most of the staff is overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. Most of the staff want the town manager to know what they're doing for the town. The town manager should have a way of connecting with the staff and empathizing with their concerns. This knowledge should be used to make decisions that positively affect staff. These decisions may not always be the most financially beneficial for the town, but the town cannot properly function with a disgruntled staff. The next town manager will need to have the skill to retain employees and recruit new employees. They will need the skills to work with the HR director, personnel committee, the department heads, and the staff on all matters related to the salary administration plan and labor unions. Undesirable traits of the next town manager include the following: managers who must prove that they are the boss by constantly asserting their authority when it is not necessary to do so, giving trivial assignments in an almost demeaning way. Managers who will take credit for successes and assign blame for all failures or have a holier-than-thou attitude should be avoided. If you have any questions regarding the matter, you can send his phone number and his email address with the town. Director of DPW. I thought Ezekiel, IT, he mentioned that he wanted to respond, but they so said that, but I thought we might hear from him. But those are the responses from the department heads that we sent down.
And nothing from the library.
Nothing from the library, no. So, all that being done, we can get back to the other parts of the agenda. The next thing I wanted to address, which was not originally on this agenda, but was on the agenda for our next meeting, which we probably should vote, is the solicitation of bids, or whatever we call it, from that Julie sent, and I don't know, I hope all of you got this. I can see a couple of you do. So Heather said that we would have to go through this solicitation process. And so I reached out to Julie the very next day when Heather made that final decision. I had met with her earlier, and she said she needed to research it. She wasn't sure. Apparently, it's all got to do with how much money you're asking for, yada, yada. So anyways, when she gave me her final decision that we have to go through this process, procurement process, I reached out to Julie the next day, and then Julie said, well, I'll do what I can, but I'm getting ready to go on vacation. Of course, then she went on vacation. So it was, now that I see the work that goes into this procurement, I can see that she certainly wasn't going to be able to get it done in the one day she had left before vacation. So when she came back, she had an email from me saying, hey, welcome back. By the way, so I've really been pestering her. And I get a chance to see her personally, but I'll say it for the record that I appreciate all of the effort that she's been putting into it, because it's quite a process that she went through. I know she told me that originally she didn't have a template for how to go through this particular procurement because it's so different from the things she normally has to do. She was hoping to do it through the RFP process because it's more common with what she would be doing, what the town might be doing. But because the money is what the money is, it had to go through this. And so you can see it's quite lengthy. So she went through it. Now, when I was relating with Julie to get this done, pestering her as I honestly really did, I asked her to do it with a couple of things in mind. And that was after meeting with Community Paradigm and Bernie. I will tell you, as part of my public comment, and you guys will have some later, that I started off our discussion with Bernie saying, look, we've always done it this way, so why can't we just do it this way? Tell me why. And I thought he was very convincing. He was committed the meeting and laid out all the reasons why going through the recruitment process made an awful lot of sense. And of course, we talked to so many people around municipal government that have said, yeah, that Bernie's, he's on top of the game. So when I reached out to Julie about the procurement, I suggested to her a couple of things. If you look at page, those would be the tab. It's all in the red here on page 3. So this is where she went through the minimum qualities. And it starts off with at least 10 to 15 years experience. And these are things that I was throwing in because these are the things that were so impressive in Bernie's presentation. Not that, they've been doing this for a couple of years, but they've been doing this for 16, I think he said, years. So, they've had so much experience. So then she adds some language in there as well, conducted at least 3 successful searches, et cetera, and so on. Number 2, explain. I had added to provide at least 3 examples of how you've established networks, municipal contracts. I had put down simply that they'd have a wide access to potential candidates. Probably not anything you can measure, so she struck that. You can see that in the red. Let's say something. Okay, yeah, just can't measure that, which is understandable. Then the third bullet is provide 3 project examples. Now, I had put in a strong understanding and connection to our local region. She struck that. I understand that you can't really measure that. I like the idea that we have a consultant firm that knew our area, because I think that's important. We're going to draw from it, but it's already drawing from a small pool. Now we're drawing from an even smaller pool because we're not going to get somebody from the Cape, right? So
one of the things I would say at the end of that, I don't know if you want to read all of them, comment later about something.
go right ahead.
I was just going to say, the fact that you included local region, I would add at the end of the statement that's not struck, I would just say, particularly those in or around north central Worcester County. I think you'll try to hone in, I think the region is important.
particularly those, say it again, particularly those in and around,
Near, in or around north central, North Worcester County. Or north central of Massachusetts.
let's call it those. Yeah. Because that's what, so, I probably should have said.
Again, I think like to your point earlier,
Yeah.
if you have people who are good at getting people in the Lennox Stockbridge area, that's gonna be different than the people who do things in Cape Ann. And, I think there's just a different feel. Not that it's like in night and day, but it's a different flavor.
Yeah, I really aware of that. I totally see your point, Tom. I think from a recruiting standpoint, it's like, I think we are more likely to achieve success within a certain radius than outside of a certain radius. But that's not to say that we won't achieve success outside that radius.
No, but my point is not the people who.
No, I understand.
Right.
Yeah, but where you're focusing, right, yeah.
Wrapping my mind around the process. Just because our process for hiring consultants for the master plan was radically different in some key ways. I'm all for the wording about, preferably in north central Massachusetts. However, preferably is not a requirement. Therefore, if they come in and I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around, someone comes in and says, see, I've met all your check boxes.
Right, and that, okay, I'm sorry.
And if they meet our check boxes and they're the lowest bid, they're the ones we have to go with. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's.
Well,
why-
we don't have to go with it, we can go with nobody.
Right.
Oh, sure.
But we can't select somebody who's not.
So I
So
guess,
this criteria gives you something else to measure.
Well, that's why I put it in.
so I guess my point being, preferably, I don't know. I mean, if only we had a lawyer in the room who could help us interpret things. If we say preferably this, to me, that sounds the same as not saying it. No, it communicates a point. It's a point that's super valued. But they can say, well, we don't need your preferences, but
We can't make a decision based on that.
Yeah,
yes.
I think as a requirement, preferably is meaningless.
And that's why now, on the other hand, it does
So then I would say with at least one being in north central Massachusetts.
I'm also gonna walk back what I just said, because.
You going to law school?
It's both winning and losing at this point.
Well, no, because what the preferably does do is it does communicate what we like. And it's possible, I'm wondering, and this is where I am ignorant. Our company, the companies that do this work, gonna look at it and say, well, they're looking for someone from there. We don't really know it. I don't know that we're gonna be able to do this effectively, so we're not going to apply, or are they just gonna put out for everything they can vaguely qualify for? I don't know.
Yes, it's a lot.
Okay,
I mean, there may be somebody who's ethically saying, this is clearly not what they're looking for, we're not what they're looking for. But again, from the legal standpoint, as Chris pointed out, and I think Peter too, it's not a requirement, it's not a checkbox. Yes, I have this, no, I don't have this. Preferably isn't a checkbox, and I agree. So we could make it, with at least one of them being in the area, then we're.
Yeah, I'm
Even,
sufficiently persuaded.
even the definition of the area, I think you'd have to say within,
That's what I said,
central
north
Mass. Well, what's north central?
20 miles. 15.
That's my
North
point
central
is,
would be at least-
so I'm looking at that requirement.
I'm fine with that. If somebody wants to take us to
Project-
north central.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wide open statement. We know the places that it's not. So Uxbridge wouldn't be north central, and North Adams is not north central. If we want to see how far it goes to go away to Orange, does Orange qualify as something else? We can have that discussion, I guess.
So again, I'm
You
looking
can
at
say
that.
Worcester County.
I'm looking at that requirement in particular, where it is now. Ability to provide more than 3 project examples where the proposed lead consultant firm has utilized community involvement in recruiting for a town manager. And if we say at least one in the region,
Well, you drop down to the next.
Okay,
Drop down to the next, provide at least 5 examples of recruitment advertisements and other outreach for other successful management. Well,
That's just method.
Yeah, that's just methodology.
Okay, I'm hesitant to say you have to have definitely, you have to have done community involvement in town manager in North Central Mass, because I worry we're gonna trim ourselves down to a pool of 0. So, maybe we won't, I don't know.
No, we won't.
Okay, then I care less. That my concern was,
Notice one.
then I'm fine. I just want to make sure we weren't in a place that we were creating a potential 0. Then,
No, I hear your concern, and I don't think that is going to happen.
okay, then I trust on that completely, that's fine.
So what exactly is the language?
I'll try to reword it. So after the sentence that's there,
Which
I would
is
say-
it for,
eh,
town
I'll just
manager.
start after for the town manager, with at least one being within the North Central Massachusetts region. I'll just add that clause at the end. So it would say, ability to provide more than three project examples. Well, again, more than 3. So why don't we just, at least 3? Shouldn't be more than, because unless we're going to 4, then we at least 4. So
At least 3.
at least 3 project examples where the proposed lead consultant or the firm has utilized community involvement in recruiting for a town manager, with at least one of those examples being in the North Central Massachusetts region.
With at least one being in the North Central region. And I don't know why she struck this one, but they needed to have affiliations with Mass Municipal.
I don't know that it's completely helpful, but I don't see that it's harmful either.
I'm gonna tell them they- And she didn't strike anything after that.
My eyes keep going back to the fact that when they describe Lunenburg, they have to say 11,705. They just couldn't put it at 700,
Might be
right?
different.
11,700.
Okay,
What does
Yeah,
affiliations with MMA mean? Like, what
I think
is,
that might be the problem.
I got know a guy? I know a guy.
You wanna take it
He's an
out?
affiliate.
What is affiliation? Maybe
I
she-
think that's the problem.
Maybe
right?
she,
Is
all right, all right.
Dave Passy
I'm
does
not-
MMA every year. I know that.
All right.
Sorry?
I know.
I think we could do our recruitment. I think he was offering something for me, first meeting he came to, in the library, knew somebody. And then I skimmed through some of this other stuff, so.
The other stuff is really pro forma,
Yeah, exactly.
except for the scope of work, so I did read the scope of work. Everything after the scope of work, which is the whole templates and contracts. If it's okay with the town council, it's okay with me.
Yeah. So
The scope of the work I thought was a good one.
I'm guessing she borrowed this from someplace, but she had said she didn't realize she needed to go find a template, so. Anyway, so I thought, good, the rest of it. So the plan would then be, tell her, go ahead with that one change. Sure.
Should we make a motion to authorize you to finalize this with her and then?
Sure, I'll take that. motion.
Second.
Anybody, have a comment on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed?
Click is not working.
I know.
You gotta wait.
Try it again. Don't keep pushing. All right,
I think that at the last finance committee meeting or the prior finance committee meeting, the reserve fund transfer was approved, right?
It was, yeah. Was that, okay.
Yeah.
So then, I just want to suggest that we should change our meeting, which currently is the 27th, I believe, but we won't have these back. They give them 2 weeks to apply. So, and we postpone the 27th and ask you to look at your calendar.
Well, ask Julie, when,
I think give her a couple days. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of change. It's just-
right, that's what I'm saying, but we should make it, but, you know, we should make a date of our next meeting when this is gonna be completed, and we can open up the bid so we can find out what our next move is.
Do we even do that on this kind of bid?
No, she'll open up the
She'll
bids.
open it up.
We'll get to decide, we'll get to see them. Sure.
But, well, today's Monday, so I'm gonna give it to her on Tuesday. We should go Wednesday and Thursday for her to finish and get it out.
Right.
You know, 2 weeks after that.
So let's just say 2 weeks from Friday will be when they're done, so the earliest will be the next
Is
week.
it 10 business days or 2 calendar weeks?
Sue's point, I didn't ask that. She
Because
just
it's
said
a
2
holiday.
weeks.
I think it's calendar weeks.
So you are suggesting that we would need to meet after that?
3 weeks from today would be the earliest.
This gets farther and farther and farther out. It's just frightening to me.
Yep.
It's what it is.
Yeah, we're past the summer, so people will be
Yeah.
not up.
Have we posted did we ever post anything in there?
We had the ads that we've used in the past. Chris wrote one for he and AI.
I didn't know because I missed a meeting. I
Yeah.
didn't know if that it was.
And I shared that with Bernie before he came, just to say, hey, here's kind of where we're at, here's what we're thinking about. And he wasn't here at Bernie's meeting, but when he got here, I said something to him about it during the meeting. And he went, no, nothing like what they do. nothing.
So,
Yeah, but I'm gonna bid on this and I have affiliations with that.
so, Tom, for your benefit, I told these guys before you got here, I don't think capital planning is happening this Wednesday. I'll post it. And
Right,
we're not ready.
I just was gonna ask you about that. Okay.
We're not ready.
Okay.
So I was gonna look to the 27th or 28th as a fallback. But,
It's the select board meeting that we don't have this. It's the last
Right,
Tuesday.
right.
Right. And we're not having our screening meeting, so you could do it. that way.
Yeah, so I would suggest maybe we look at it's September 11th, which is a Wednesday. There is no school committee meeting that.
Yes, because all good things happen on 9/11.
Well,
That's fine with me. Yeah. What day, what day?
it's a
is it?
Wednesday.
A Wednesday.
What time?
Same.
30.
I may be away, but I'll try to call it, but
Well, what I'll ask Julie to do is get it done within a couple days. And then when all the solicitations come in, ask her to screen them right up to you guys.
When she says she's posted it and it's out,
I'll let you
or, yeah, just let us know when the deadline is.
Right, because we could move it.
But
Anything else from anybody on the committee? And then I'll entertain a motion to go. Okay. Somebody
Make a motion to go home.
Second,
and adjourn.
and adjourn.
See, look, everyone's gonna
Not to
entertain.
return.
He said it.
Motion to adjourn, all approved. Thank you.
Do I have to go home? You don't have to.
Thanks,
Can't
Kate.
stay here.
Right.